What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to College Football Talk with Peter Burtonette. Been away for a couple weeks, but we're back on the channel. Going to be bringing another one of those what-if videos. And in this video, we're going to be taking a look at what if the Miami Hurricanes had won the 2002 National Championship and were not called for pass interference against Ohio State. I'll get into it more in the video. The changes aren't going to be as big as you might think, and I'm going to explain why in this video. But before I do, if you go on to enjoy, please feel free to leave a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and turn on those post notifications so you're always up to date whenever I post. You might have noticed right there, reason that I've been away is because I've got a ring on my finger now. I got married to my beautiful fiance and now wife, Brooke. So thankful to be married to her now, and so just kind of a quick shout out for her and an explanation of why I've been away for a couple weeks. There's a lot of things that go on with a wedding, and enjoyed a beautiful wedding and a fantastic honeymoon, and glad to be back to filming College Football Talk now and being with you guys. But in this video, the Miami Hurricanes, the 2002 National Championship game, it was a double overtime classic against Ohio State, but a lot of people will look at it and say that Miami should have won that game because the pass interference that was called wasn't an accurate call. And so let's say that pass interference does not get called and the Hurricanes go on to win the national championship game. That would have changed a lot of things that year. It would have meant that Miami was the champions instead of Ohio State. So, that's one big change. It would have been Miami's second straight national championship. And I think it would have had some repercussions. And I think, though, those would have only been kind of in the immediacy. The first thing you look at is obviously Miami wins their sixth all-time national championship. Mentioned already, second straight, and their second under Larry Coker, who took over the job from Bush Davis, who went to the NFL to coach the Cleveland Browns. So the Hurricanes, they were already a powerhouse. They were known for their time during the 80s with Jimmy Johnson as head coach, and then a little bit in the 90s with Dennis Erickson and Butch Davis in the back half of the 90s. So they had established themselves as a perennial contender. I think, though, there were problems that were already brewing, kind of bubbling under the surface at Miami. I'm going to go over those a little bit more, near the end of this video. But how I think things change is Miami probably has a little bit more momentum going into next year, which would end up being their last in the Big East. They ended up, I think, that year going 11-2. I think on the back of a national championship, I think it's a little more likely that they could have completed a three-peat. And we could have seen the Miami Hurricanes with 7 all-time national championships, which would have, at the time, put them past Ohio State because Ohio State had 6. They won their 7th in 2002. So it would have put them ahead of a program like Ohio State, even though Miami was a much younger program. Maybe not much younger, but definitely, I think, a younger program. So that would have been a big change. I think it probably would have affected maybe 2003. And so the question to ask, was the issue that caused the decline of Miami football, what was that from? The decline, it looks like this. 2003, the following year after losing the championship game, missing out on a potential incredible 2-year run, going, I think, what would have been 24-0 over those 2 years. They go 11-2 the next year, so it's still a solid season. The year after that, they move over to the ACC. They go 9-3, same thing in 2005. And then 2006, though, they go 7-6. And once you get past that, they had several years where they would be right around 500. And just couldn't get any big wins, and it's something that still exists to this day. Miami, I think of the game a couple years ago now where they played against Notre Dame, and they were a top 10 team, and they just got absolutely dismantled by the Fighting Irish. So, or maybe it was Clemson. I think maybe they beat Notre Dame. I'm trying to remember that one, how that went, but it was a decline, and they haven't gotten anywhere close to where they used to be, and so. Kind of one thing to look at, recruiting classes certainly took a hit. In 2003, they had the number 4 in the recruiting class in the nation. They went up to 3 for the 2004 class, but then down to 9, 12, 13. Kind of an anomaly, up to number 1 in 2008. That amounted to nothing. And then back down to 16, up to 12. And then in 2011, almost 10 years removed from this national championship loss, they end up dipping all the way down to 32. The recruiting class that they have incoming this year is looking pretty solid. Mario Cristobal has the program, I think, moving in the right direction. They certainly disappointed this past season, especially that game against Georgia Tech. That absolutely should not have been a loss by any means. But that decline has certainly been there. And I think The question is, was it the recruiting violations that kind of hamstrung the program when Butch Davis took over? Was it those kind of taking more of an impact, kind of taking a foothold? Was it them joining the ACC, probably a better football conference, especially during this era, and or was it losing the national championship game? Honestly, I don't think losing that national championship game is as big of an impact as you might think. And this is framed to be a what if. Again, I think the what if is probably they maybe go on to win the 2003 championship or at least make the BCS championship game. I mean, they would have been in contention with both LSU and USC to be national champions that year. And so I think that's something to consider as well. But I think they probably do kind of still, kind of dip off. Maybe that progression is a little bit slower. But I think in this situation, it's not a big what if. I think a lot doesn't really change. So I think I kind of want to take a look more at what caused this. I looked at this article. I'll throw up a link or like a screenshot of the main landing page on this. It's an article from SB Nation, which it's more of a fan site, but a lot of times there are good perspectives in that. And some of the things that they listed off, Larry Coker as a head coach proved to just not really have that it factor for being super successful as a head coach. He was at Miami for I think 4 or 5 years and didn't do much there. I mean, the program went downward in his time there, and then he eventually went to UTSA and didn't fare a whole lot better there. I think that's one of the factors. Another one is kind of twofold, kind of creating this country club environment with you go there to enjoy South Beach, the warm weather, all the women and all that stuff, all the things that come with South Beach and Miami, and not really focusing on football or really even developing these young men into both football players and young men like what Nick Saban has done at Alabama, building the guys into quality young men was kind of missing there. And that's not to say that people who came into Miami were a bunch of just unruly people, but I think it was kind of, a lot more was allowed to slide, if that makes sense. And one of the reasons for that is Nevin Shapiro, who eventually, got caught for giving out these impermissible benefits that was kind of like, you come here to Miami, we'll give you all this stuff, and then it's a lot easier for those players then to be like, oh, okay, I'm getting all this stuff, just going to go out there, maybe have fun on the football field and more fun off of it. And I think that kind of also is what started to make Florida in the later 2000s, they were able to continue winning because Urban Meyer was a coach that really cultivated a winning culture. But you kind of saw signs like that kind of start to unravel. If you've seen the Swamp Kings documentary, again, a lot that was framed in a way that a lot was left out, but you certainly do at least get a picture of what some of the problems were. Another thing, there was kind of a lack of proper investment in the football program. I remember seeing like all these other schools getting huge locker room renovations, and it felt like Miami for a long time was really in the dust, and not really until recently have they really poured money into that football program. And part of that as well, facilities as a whole, leaving the Orange Bowl, I think after 2007 season, kind of probably took a little bit of the soul out of the program. Again, by that point, they were already no longer winning football games, but I think that was a big thing as well. So ultimately, all these other factors, I believe, would have unraveled the Canes crumbling culture anyways. I think it would have fallen apart because, again, that culture was crumbling in Coral Gables. So this what if situation isn't quite the same as the last one that I made, where if Baylor gets in, it could potentially have saved the Pac-12. I think in this case, Miami probably has one, maybe two more seasons up at the absolute upper echelon of college football, but ultimately I think they kind of fade away anyways. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know how college football would be different if the Miami Hurricanes would have won the 2002 national championship game and were not called for pass interference. But that's all for this video, College Football Talk. I'm going to be back bringing you guys episodes weekly, perhaps more often if time permits and I have the availability. But thank you so much if you come back to watching the channel. If you're new, thank you so much for checking it out. That's it for this episode. I'm Peter Burtnett. Have a great day. Signing out. Peace.